Hello. Actually, wait, turn the audio on your computer and see if you can hear me talking.
So they can echo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hydro live stream. It's September 12th, 11 a.m. So we missed our monthly meetup that we normally do because the core blockchain team, myself, Noah, Andy, and Anurag, were both here as well. We're in Berlin at a conference. And so we thought we'd do this stream just to give you all a bit of an update as to what we've been up to for the past month or so. So as some of you may know, if you're following along with our dev updates, we've been working a lot with client raindrop, or sorry, with Snowflake, which is our identity protocol, and the next stop in our roadmap after client raindrop. And so we've been working out the smart contract, we've been working out the front end, and we thought that today we could share a bit of a demo that kind of captures a lot of the core components of what Snowflake will end up becoming. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump right into it. You can see here that we're looking at a website that is basically a dashboard for all things related to your Snowflake. So up the top here, we have the address to the Snowflake smart contract. If I click over to the code link here, you can see all the code that we've written, which manages an individual Snowflake. And right now, of course, we're just only on the testnet, which is why it says rank B here. The next component down is just information about your Ethereum address. So you can see here that I'm kind of identifying myself as this address here. I have 0.493 testnet ether, and I have no Hydro tokens. And then below this line is where things get interesting. So this kind of portion of the screen is my Snowflake information. So the first element you can see here is this thing that says Noah, and that's actually my HydroID. So the concept of the HydroID is probably maybe familiar to some of you. When you download the Hydro app, you're assigned a HydroID that serves as your kind of digital identity. And that's exactly what this is here. I've just assigned myself a custom one rather than a random string of 7 characters like you would get in the app. And then the second number here is the number of Hydro tokens that I've deposited into my Snowflake. So although I have zero tokens associated with my account, I have 999 associated with my Snowflake, which is an interesting dynamic that we can get into a bit later. So this next portion is the resolver tab. So resolvers are just a kind of catch-all term for dApps that can utilize your identity in various ways. So the most obvious is, say this status app. So we've written this dApp that lets you connect your Snowflake to it and upload a string that is tied to your identity that you can set. So I have set a status of hacking at /Berlin. And that's because, as I mentioned, we were in Berlin for the past couple weeks, or the past couple days. And this is something that, again, is plugging into my identity and is associated with me in this kind of programmatic on-chain way. We'll talk a little bit more about other resolvers going forward, but the basic idea for this tab is that users and owners of Snowflake can add resolvers and dApps that plug into their identity and provide information or additional details about their identity. Another cool aspect of resolvers is that we've added a way for easy access to new resolvers. So you can see here the kind of the prototype of what we're calling a dApp store. So we anticipate many resolvers being built on top of Snowflake, and we're going to make them all available as kind of ready-made dApps for people to add very, very seamlessly. So these two dApps are just examples that we've written, but in the future, this will have a whole host of interesting resolvers that will let you, do different things with your Snowflake identity and manage them that way. So this is kind of a centralized dashboard for viewing and utilizing resolvers on your Snowflake. This next tab is the address tab. So you can see that I'm identifying myself again as this address up here, which is exactly the same one as you see here. But there's a possibility that I might have multiple addresses. Say I have one on my phone in Trust Wallet, I have one in my Hydro app, I have one in my MetaMask on my desktop, and I want to transact from all of these using the same core identity, this Snowflake identity. That is made possible through some logic that we've written into the Snowflake smart contract, which lets you add multiple addresses to the same Snowflake identity. And so we might go through the process of adding an address later, because right now I only have one added, but the idea basically is that you can kind of aggregate multiple addresses under the same kind of common alias, which is your HydroID, and you can interact with resolvers through any of those addresses, and you're kind of permissioned exactly the same when you're interacting with any of those addresses. So this is something that's pretty interesting and kind of at the core of what we see for Snowflake. And finally, this last tab is token management. So I mentioned above that there are two kind of stores of Hydro tokens. The first is with an address, and the second is with a Snowflake. So you can deposit Hydro tokens from any address into your Snowflake, at which point they become available to any of the addresses that you've added in this address tab. And so that becomes very, very powerful when you deposit kind of, say, a fixed amount of Hydro tokens via this functionality here, and you're able to set allowances for different dApps that different resolvers that you've added, which can unlock various functionality within these resolvers. So I know this is a bit broad, and we'll get into specifics more, more concretely either now or at a later date. But the basic idea is that tokens become unlocked from your address and kind of are available to any address that you've added to your Snowflake identity, and unlock functionality within resolvers that you are interested in utilizing. And so that's what this tab here lets you do. So that's kind of a broad overview. I'm now going to kind of hand things over to Anurag for a bit, and he's going to go through the process of making a new Snowflake identity. And this is something that you can do right now. So I'm going to actually copy this link. Can I throw a link in the chat, Nahum?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know. Maybe if I go to...
Yeah, what are Nahum do it?
Okay, so I'm going to send this. Nahum is going to do it. Can you just send the GitHub link? Yeah, so basically this is going to be something that any one of you, following along at home can do. You can follow along with Anurag as he makes a new Snowflake identity and takes you through the kind of initialization phases. So without further ado, I'm going to hop over to a new MetaMask account.
Do you want to quickly make another new address and then we can set F to it so that I can do the address stuff too?
Yes.
Here, I'll give you my rank B to send the F to. You can send the...
Actually, just add. I have one you can add.
It has F in it?
Yes.
Okay.
It's just the one right above.
Account 7?
Account 7, yeah. Okay, so this is a kind of fresh address that doesn't have a Snowflake. And again, Anurag is going to take you through the process of creating a Snowflake associated with this address.
For the chat.
Hey everybody, Anurag here. So, new user, we're starting from scratch. As you can see, you will need to have some level of Ethereum in your account, and you'll need to have some Hydro in order to achieve all of the functionality of the dashboard. So the first step when you access the dashboard is creating a Hydro ID. This is going to be kind of your gateway identifier to everything within the Hydro ecosystem, including specifically this dashboard. So let's call this demo Hydro ID, and we're going to need to claim it with a MetaMask transaction. While that transaction confirms, I'll give you a little bit of, it's confirmed very quickly. So the next step is to claim your actual Snowflake token. This is a kind of tool that you use to navigate the dashboard. As Noah mentioned earlier, the Snowflake token allows you to hold Hydro deposits that you can access from any of your linked addresses. So that's very quick, two-step process. We've claimed our Snowflake, and we have named it with our Hydro ID called Demo Hydro ID. So now we're right where Noah showed you earlier. We have access to all three functions on the dashboard: token management, address management, and resolver management. So for starters, let's deposit some tokens into our Snowflake. You see currently we have 0 Hydro in here, and we have 2,000 Hydro in our actual wallet. Now let's deposit 1000 Hydro. And this balance here, the Snowflake balance, should update with the newly transferred Hydro. You can see that currently the only address that has access to our Snowflake is the same address that we are using, EE47. And now we've got the 1000 Hydro in our Snowflake. So now let's look at some of these resolvers. This is the actual dApp store that a user, it's kind of analogous to a regular app store I'm sure you've used on iOS or Google Play, where you look for the different apps you want to download, you select them, and then you add them to your account. So here's a dummy app that Noah made, the status app. We're going to add it into our app store and set our status. So you'll notice that here it charges 1 Hydro in order to allow you to download this app. This would be kind of like in an app store if a developer made a pay to download app that you have to pay in order to add to your Apple account or your Google Play account. So as that transaction clears, we return to the dashboard and we see that we can use this app. The developer can build whatever sort of modal, and we are becoming Hydro wizards. You can also see other people's statuses. So Noah's Snowflake, if we look it up, we can see his status that he showed you earlier from his Snowflake is hacking at ETH Berlin. This is really neat. It's kind of a very simple version of an on-chain social media profile. You can imagine developers building out a more sophisticated dApp that allows you to connect to other people with their on-chain identity. And the next resolver is Andy's KYC resolver. And this is a base implementation that allows a client to solve a lot of the issues that are currently with KYC onboarding today. When you go to one bank, you have to provide a lot of onboarding KYC information, and then you have to repeat the process with each new bank or exchange or financial institution that you visit. This app creates a mechanism. I'm not going to go through every step of it, but essentially it lets you create basic standards. So for instance, if you want to prove that somebody's over 21, I can attest that Noah is over 21. I'll personally be completing that information, and then we'll be able to see that as the transaction clears, you'll be able to see Noah's attestation of being over 21.
Might be broken.
Let me refresh the page. And now we can see his past standard. I've attested. So if I were a government agency or a bank, Noah would be able to present his HydroID to a bar and veritably verify that he's over 21. The next function is address management. And
to initiate from here.
And so
you're right, yeah.
So we'll need the address of that. So let's say I've got one address on my phone, a different address on my computer. Anybody who's worked with Ethereum addresses knows how difficult it is to deal with all of the different addresses that you own.
That's not going to work. Yeah, there needs to be one that doesn't have a. I think one of these does.
Let's see if we've got an account that hasn't interacted yet. This one, right?
This one, yes.
Okay.
But you need to send ETH to there. So
can you send it?
yeah. I actually don't open up.
Oh.
Let's just send it from here.
Okay.
sorry, everyone. This is just a bit of a technical. We're just going to fund a kind of random account with some ETH so that we can
show you the address management function.
So it is, which one was it? Tester?
No, it's account
Account
7.
Seven?
No,
No.
9. That's fine.
Okay, so that's the one.
I think it was actually mainnet.
Yeah, scroll down.
This is mainnet owner.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we've got the Ether in this one, and we're going to claim ownership of. We're going to attach that Ethereum address to our demo HydroID Snowflake. The way we do that is first claim the address from our Snowflake. And once we've claimed it, then we'll confirm that we own it from the other account, and then it becomes on-chain, immutably verified that we own both accounts. So now you'll see we have the option to finalize the claim for our Snowflake demo HydroID. And what's neat is that once this confirms, even though we didn't create our Snowflake from this address, we have access to the entire state of the dashboard with all of our resolvers already added. And we'll see that now both addresses are part of this Snowflake. Also, even though this address has 0 Hydro, you'll see that we can access our 999 remaining Hydro deposited in the Snowflake from both addresses, which is cool when you get into the payments that different resolvers will include. So now Andy's going to walk you through a little bit more detail of the dApp that he built.
Just move the laptop. All right. Hey guys, I'm just going to talk a little bit more about resolvers and what it looks like to build one and how users can access them and kind of the benefits that they have. So first, I will remove this resolver. So it's one of the things we have the option to do is basically if you don't want to be associated with a particular resolver anymore, you can pretty easily remove them from being linked to your Snowflake. All right, once this moves, okay, so with the Hydro KYC here, a few of the things that are going on, this allowance is based on a value. I can set whatever I want. I can make this 100 if I wanted when I initiate it. For any particular app, there are going to be different amounts that you might need to use. For example, if someone made a resolver where every user paid every other user with Hydro, you probably want to set a higher allowance if you anticipated that you were going to be sending your friends Hydro every day. So I'll set this resolver with an allowance of 100. And this is always something that you can change. I'll show you how to do that once this confirmation goes through. Also, Noah made these awesome transaction buttons in React. They're really cool. So here you can see the allowances for each of the resolvers that we have set. So say I realized that I needed to send Noah 150 Hydro, but my allowance is only set to 100. I can check this box and modify the allowance to 150 and update the allowance. And once this confirmation goes through, I would be able to transact with all 150 Hydro that we set for that allowance. So then looking a little bit more, this is going to end up refreshing my page, but looking a little more at the Hydro KYC dApp that I created, it's a pretty open-ended resolver, which allows for users to see what standards that they have passed, add standards that could be passed. So for example, the currently added standards are over 21, blank, test. I support Spurs and from the UK, so it sounds like a Tottenham fan got in here and was messing around with it. I don't know who that was, but good for them. So for example here, let's say I want to add a standard. Someone give me a standard.
Member of Hydro community.
Member, great one, of Hydro community. So we can add this. And then once this confirmation goes through, that will be in the list of available standards that you can remove or attest to for any user. So you can imagine in a scenario where, say, multiple organizations were using this where they needed to all verify that a user had passed certain KYC regulations. They can just add the standard that's required for that, and then at that point, say we're a member of the Hydro community. I'm sure many banks care about that. You can then attest to all of the different people who you know are covering this standard. And that attestation doesn't carry very much weight when it's just random people who are attesting to other random people. But say, for example, a large respected organization started using this KYC, and then as that grows and there's a network effect of many large organizations using this, these companies will trust each other and trust their attestations, and then it eliminates a lot of the duplicate work that has to be done on the platform. So then here we can see I just attested to Noah's past standards. So now we can see Anurag attested that he was over 21, and I've now attested that he was a member of the Hydro community. And you can see that. And then also on chain, you can also see what addresses attested to these things, but that currently isn't available on this dashboard. So talking a little bit more just about resolvers in general, they're kind of the core of what Snowflake is. And we're really excited to see what other people also build on top of Snowflake. Resolvers are, in their simplest form, just dApps that utilize Snowflake in a few very particular ways. Let me see if, no. But yeah, that's the majority of our dApps. Does anyone have any questions in the YouTube for anything? I don't know how.
There's no camera.
Do you have any questions?
Oh, Ray asked a question.
Oh, nice. Hi, Ray. Why don't we just read the question and then we'll answer it
Yeah.
in voice chat instead of over text in the YouTube
All right, we've
chat.
got a question from Ray. Are the allowances per transaction or overall?
They're overall. So if I set an allowance of 100, it can all be used in one transaction, or it can be in one 1,000th, I can't say that word, of a Hydro over a very long time.
The notion is that the dApp would have things like in-app purchases or different ways that they charge. And so since those are standard and already set on the blockchain, a user sets a broad allowance for the dApp, and then they go within the functionality of the dApp to allow the dApp to pull from that allowance.
Yeah, and I mean, this isn't quite as open-ended as it might seem. Like, it seems maybe risky to say, oh, this arbitrary dApp can withdraw, X amount of my Hydro tokens at any point. But, in reality, these are going to be smart contracts on chain that presumably will have code that's auditable, and, people will be able to look at these contracts and make sure that the only way that withdrawals can happen is under very specific sets of circumstances that you control. Again, it's, somewhat of a kind of open-ended balance, but on the other hand, there are kind of limits and standards around this withdrawing capability.
Yeah, and in the same line of what Noah was just saying, also any resolver that's going to be added to our dashboard is going to need to be approved by a pull request from Noah and myself, and whoever ends up also being a part of the the admin group for this GitHub, whether they're from the Hydro community or elsewhere. And so we'll definitely be auditing those contracts and making sure that they're not malicious in any way before allowing people to interact with them directly on the dashboard.
2 new questions. One, any big exchange listing plan? That's not really our team's focus right now. You've got the dev team in the room. We're just talking about products for this particular live stream. The next question is, will this be mobile friendly in the future?
It actually already is pretty mobile friendly. I recommend you check it out on Trust Wallet or Status. It looks pretty good to me, honestly. I haven't had too many bad experiences with it. It definitely needs to be tested way more on mobile, but as it stands right now, I think it's in a decent spot for us not really making it with mobile in mind to start with.
Currently, the only way to interact with dApps from mobile is to use an application that has a built-in dApp browser. So that would be Trust Wallet, Status, Toshi, apps like that.
And yeah, there is one complication. So if you're using Snowflake from your desktop and you create a Snowflake and you want to add an address that is on your mobile phone, like let's say you have a mobile phone, you have Trust, but you created your Snowflake on a desktop. You can't currently add your mobile address to your desktop Snowflake because we haven't kind of written the logic that does that yet. But yeah, going forward, it's going to be seamless when you're using your Snowflake from your mobile phone or your desktop computer, as long as you are able to add those addresses and associate them with the same Snowflake. So look out for the ability to add mobile addresses to Snowflakes created with desktop, the desktop app very, very soon. But note that this is definitely coming very, very soon. And also, if you make your Snowflake from a mobile phone originally, there will be no problem with accessing all the functionality that you've seen today.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Gotta just joined. What am I looking at?
I recommend you go back half an hour.
Yeah, I think we've got the recording here. We gave some background on how the Snowflake identity protocol and dApp store work and are now fielding questions about it. New question, is the Snowflake meltdown proof? Any stress tests done?
Yeah, so we are actually in the process of getting some of our smart contracts audited through our HCDP, which is our community development program. There's more details of that on GitHub, and we blog about it quite a bit. So rest assured that we are making sure that our smart contracts are going to be bug proof to the extent possible. This is, of course, just on the testnet. We anticipate there being some changes certainly before we launch to mainnet. And part of the reason that we're releasing this dashboard and opening it up to the community is that we want to find pain points or potential bugs or things like that. So of the products that we've released, we feel very confident about their ability to perform. And for Snowflake in particular, we haven't had any big issues yet. We're performing an undergoing audit, and we're welcoming any and all input from the community. So
yeah, and there's active communication from the people interested in doing this audit on Discord. So feel free to hop on there. We're very active to go into more detail on that. We got a hi and a heart. So hi.
Heart right back at you.
Yeah.
Back at you,
Just hit
Sander.
that, yeah.
Anyone have anything else before we kind of move towards wrapping this up? If not, I definitely recommend that everyone who checked this out and anyone who comes back later and watches this, please go through this and set up a Snowflake and try it. I believe we also have a feedback form.
Yeah, I'm sending the link right now.
If you could send that in the chat, maybe we'll even post it in the description of the video when this is done. We'd love as much feedback as possible about what was easy, what was hard, what didn't make sense, what you think we should focus on more, anything and everything. Please give us as much feedback as you can. We really appreciate it.
And here's the link to the feedback form for any of you who go through this process and try it out. We'd love to incorporate your feedback into further improving the product.
All right. I think, how do I sign off on this?
You have to just switch Chrome tabs.
Switch Chrome tabs. Yeah, go for it. But on that note, thank you guys again for checking this out. Oh, this is terrifying.
All right, well, with that very spooky ending, we're going to sign off. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.
I don't think they can see the spooky ending.
They will.
Oh yeah, you're right. That's amazing.
Oh my God.